How's everybody doing? Excuse me for being a little late with this video. Um, I've been recovering from the sinus infection on the right side of under my right cheek, or in my right cheek. But that aside, I was very disappointed to hear about this mass shooting in Vegas, in which one gentleman, or one male, basically assassinated the lives of 60 people, or at least 60 people. I'm unsure of the number, but it's up there. And he's set the record for the largest mass shooting by a single shooter in the United States. This is unsettling because it is playing into a theory in which I made a video. I can't remember exactly which one, but it's definitely one of my earliest videos, in which I stated that to prove the practicality of my theory that life is proceeding towards something, I said that life has to keep getting more complicated versions of what has happened previously. So basically what's happened before is happening again, only more complex versions of itself. So now we've got the most powerful hurricane to hit Florida, as well as the #1 mass shooter. I'm sure there's other things that we're progressing on as well. But this will continue, unfortunately, if my theory holds correct. And this is something that I do not wish to be right on. But I've put in the work, and if you take the time to think objectively, you will come to the same realization that time is progressing further and further into more complexity. And what that means is the actions that we're engaged in are only going to get more and more progressively worse if we do not change course in the fundamental foundation, fundamental values of of our actions, meaning that we should put moral value ahead of financial value. And currently we put financial value as well as emotional desire ahead of need and moral value. And this is why we are progressing to never nowhere, is what I call it. Peter Pan, the cartoon, already admitted that we were going to Neverland, so I'll at least give them credit with that. Now, I did want to also focus this video on an issue that came up with Pat Robertson. Pat Robertson went so far as saying that in reference to the Las Vegas shooting, he went as far as saying that this is due to, or inferring that this is due to, people disrespecting the president and the flag. He said that violence in the streets was due to a lack of control of biblical authority in the United States. He said that the people have a disrespect for authority. There is a profound disrespect for the president. All across the nation, they say terrible things about the president. And it's also a disrespect for the national anthem, a disrespect for the veterans, and a disrespect for the institutions of government, even disrespect for the court system. All the way up and down the line, disrespect. So Mr. Robertson, Pat Robertson, a televangelist, Um, he wishes for there to be biblical authority and controlling authority in our society. Because when there is no vision of God, the people run amok. Now, he says a couple other things, but they're not even really worth getting into. I think this is a good enough sample size. The beginning of his comments, I paraphrased some of them, but you got the basic gist of what he was saying there. And Pat Robertson is not a person that I myself, or I don't think any other thinker, even a biased one, puts much stock into his opinion. But there are people, gullible people, who don't know any better that do. And that's what makes this Mr. Robertson, dangerous. Because many people will take what he says and take it as gold. And there, who I'll address first in my response to his comments. First off, for those who listen to Mr. Robertson for religious value, I'm assuming that you're a Christian. And if we are looking at it through the Christian lens, let's point to the book, the Bible, and contrast Mr. Robertson's statements with that of Jesus when it came to authority in society. Jesus, as we all know, who Mr. Robertson claims to follow, who Mr. Robertson wouldn't have the fame that he has garnered without claiming that he was a follower of Jesus, was never a defender of the authority in society. In fact, Jesus never stated that there should be biblical authority as the controlling authority in society. He told people to be free of the law from the Old Testament. Jesus told someone to give Caesar back what was Caesar's, in reference to the money that Caesar's face was on. He did have dinner with a tax collector. I can't remember if it's Zacharias or Zachariah. He did have dinner with him, but he did not become a businessman after having dinner with him. If anything, he offered Zachariah a chance of redemption. Jesus went into the church and flipped over tables when he saw that there was gambling and all kind of merchant type of business going on within the church, rather than focusing on spiritual enlightenment. Jesus was arrested by the authority of the time, guilty of nothing. He escaped and was arrested again, and that's when he was crucified. So when it comes to the controlling authority in society, Jesus was never. Jesus, who is the goal, the emblem of the symbol of Christianity, which Mr. Robertson claims to follow, was completely anti what Mr. Robertson asserts. If anything, Mr. Robertson sounds like he's been focused on the Old Testament with kings and authority. Those were the themes of the law. Those were the themes of the Old Testament. And Jesus, and that's who the Jewish faith are focused on. And Mr. Robertson claims to be focused on the New Testament. The very reason for Jesus to show up in the Bible at all was to free the people at that time from the Old Testament and its oppressive laws. Or there wouldn't even be a need for the New Testament whatsoever. So I am confused by Mr. Robertson's statements and his claimed religion. He needs to either clear one of the two up. It's either he's a follower of Christ in every to the full example of Christ, protesting against authority, tyrannical authority, and standing up for the people and their well-being, or he wants to be a part of the controlling authority, as in the Old Testament, as the themes of the Old Testament were, which would make him not a follower of Christ. I think that covers it on further hypocrisy by Mr. Robertson. I just wanted to point that out because I just think it's very hypocritical on his part to make those statements while claiming that he's a follower of Jesus. It's completely counterintuitive, fraudulent, if you will. Thank you.